When the war ends, the world believes something has been resolved. Borders stop moving. Sirens fall silent. The news cycle finds a new subject. From the outside, the story appears complete. But inside the human mind, nothing feels finished. The moment the fighting stops is rarely the moment the damage ends. For many, it is the moment it finally begins. During war, the mind is not designed to reflect. It is designed to survive. Every system inside the body reorganizes itself around one priority: staying alive. Attention sharpens. Emotions compress. Fear becomes useful. Pain becomes secondary. There's no space to ask what something means, only whether it is dangerous. Meaning can wait. Survival cannot. When the war ends, that structure collapses. The constant urgency disappears, and with it the rules that govern daily existence. What remains is a silence that feels unnatural, a quiet that does not soothe, but unsettles. The mind, once trained to scan constantly for threat, suddenly has nowhere to point its vigilance. And so it turns inward. That is when memories begin to surface, not as stories but as fragments, images without context, sounds without sources, sensations that arrive suddenly and disappear just as fast. The past does not return politely. It interrupts, it intrudes. It reasserts itself in moments that seem safe but do not feel safe. The body does not understand that the war is over. It only understands patterns. For months or years, danger was unpredictable. Safety was temporary. Calm was suspicious. These lessons are not unlearned simply because peace has been declared. The nervous system continues to behave as if threat could return at any moment, because once it did. This is why rest feels difficult after war. Sleep becomes light, fragmented. The body remains alert even when exhausted. Dreams carry the weight of unfinished experiences, replaying moments the mind never had time to process. Waking life begins to feel distant, unreal, as if the person is watching themselves exist rather than fully inhabiting their own body. From the outside, nothing appears wrong. The person walks, speaks, responds. They may even function well, but internally, the world feels altered. Emotions no longer behave as they once did. Anger appears suddenly disproportionate to the situation. Sadness lingers without a clear reason. Joy feels muted, distant, almost inappropriate. There's often a sense that something essential has gone quiet. Trust changes shape. The world once revealed how fragile normal life truly is, how quickly routines collapse, how easily people disappear. The mind remembers this, even if it does not speak about it. It becomes cautious, selective, less willing to assume safety by default. Attention narrows. The brain prioritizes what might go wrong over what might go right. Even in peaceful environments, the body remains prepared for disruption. Loud noises provoke reactions before thought can intervene. Sudden movements trigger tension. These responses feel excessive, but they are not irrational. They are learned. People often interpret these changes as personality shifts. They say someone has become colder, more distant, more irritable. But what they are witnessing is not a loss of character. It is an adaptation, a nervous system reshaped by prolonged exposure to uncertainty, loss, and threat. The person did not change randomly. They changed precisely in the ways that once kept them alive. Behavior begins to tell the story the mind cannot yet articulate. Some people avoid crowds. Others avoid silence. Some seek constant stimulation, filling every quiet moment with noise or activity, afraid of what might surface when the mind slows down. Others retreat inward, reducing their world to what feels manageable. Control becomes important. Predictability becomes comforting. Routines harden. The mind attempts to recreate stability by controlling what it can, because once nothing was controllable. Emotional distance emerges not as indifference, but as protection. Caring deeply once meant vulnerability. Attachment once carried loss. The mind remembers this association, so it limits exposure. It loves carefully. It connects cautiously. It watches itself constantly. None of this feels dramatic from the inside. There's no clear moment when something breaks. Instead, trauma settles quietly, like background noise. It becomes the baseline. Living in constant tension feels normal. Emotional numbness feels familiar. Hypervigilance feels responsible. Over time, this state stops being questioned. Society reinforces this normalization. There is an unspoken expectation to move on, to resume productivity, to return to who you were before. But that version of the self no longer exists. War does not simply add experiences to a person. It reorganizes them. The mind resists being rushed. It does not heal on command. When trauma is ignored, minimized, or dismissed, it does not disappear. It adapts. It embeds itself deeper into perception, shaping how the world is interpreted. The war may be over in reality, but inside the mind it has simply changed form. As time passes, people assume healing has occurred. Years without violence are mistaken for years without impact. Time, many believe, is enough. But time alone does not rewire the nervous system. Time does not teach the brain that danger is no longer imminent. Time only creates distance, and trauma does not obey distance. One of the most persistent effects of war is how it distorts time itself. The past does not feel behind. It feels close, accessible, ready to return. Memories are not recalled as events that happened once. They arrive as experiences happening again. The body reacts before the mind can label what is occurring. This is why trauma feels present, even decades later. The brain did not store these moments as completed stories. It stored them as unresolved threats, and unresolved threats demand attention. The mind remains partially anchored to the conditions under which those memories were formed. Even in safe environments, a part of the self stays alert, watching for signs that safety might be temporary again. This constant readiness shapes identity. Over time, the person begins to define themselves around what they can tolerate rather than what they desire. Choices become cautious. Dreams become smaller. Risk feels unnecessary. The future feels fragile. Emotional expression becomes complicated. Feelings once experienced freely now feel dangerous or overwhelming. Some emotions are suppressed because they feel uncontrollable. Others dominate because they were once useful. Fear, vigilance, and control become familiar companions. This is not a conscious process. It is automatic. The mind is doing what it learned to do under pressure. What makes post-war trauma particularly enduring is how easily it blends into normal life. There's no clear boundary between before and after. The person continues living, working, interacting. On the surface, life resumes. Internally, the nervous system remains oriented toward survival rather than presence. The body carries what the mind has not yet processed. Tension accumulates in muscles. Breathing remains shallow. The heart responds quickly to perceived threat. These sensations become so familiar that they are no longer recognized as signals of distress. This is how trauma becomes invisible. Not because it is gone, but because it has been integrated into daily existence. In many cases, people do not identify themselves as traumatized. They identify as tired, irritable, disconnected, restless. They may feel out of place in peaceful environments, unsure why calm feels uncomfortable. The absence of chaos feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. There is often a quiet grief beneath this state, not only for what was lost during the war, but for the person who existed before it. That version of the self feels distant, almost fictional, remembered but not accessible. Yet trauma is not a permanent sentence. It is a condition of learning, and learning can be revised. Healing does not mean erasing what happened. It means allowing the nervous system to update its understanding of reality. It means teaching the body that the present is not the past, that silence does not always signal danger, that rest does not require vigilance. This process is slow. It cannot be forced. The mind releases survival strategies only when it feels genuinely safe enough to do so. Safety is not an idea. It is a felt experience. Moments of presence begin small. A breath that deepens unexpectedly. A sound that does not trigger alarm. A moment of stillness that does not feel threatening. These moments teach the nervous system something new, gradually, patiently. Trauma loosens not through confrontation, but through integration. When memories are allowed to exist without overwhelming the present. When emotions are felt without being feared. When the body learns that it no longer needs to live in preparation mode. This is not about returning to who you were before the war. That person belongs to another time. Healing is about becoming someone new who can carry what happened without being ruled by it. War changes the human mind, but it does not remove its capacity for adaptation. The same systems that learn fear can learn safety. The same brain that reorganized itself for survival can reorganize itself for presence. The end of war is not the end of the story. It is the moment when the deeper work begins, the work of reconnecting to the present, of learning to inhabit the body again, of allowing life to be experienced without constant anticipation of loss. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the restoration of internal permission to exist without armor. And when that permission slowly returns, something subtle shifts. The mind stops watching itself constantly. The body releases its grip. The future feels possible again, not untouched, not innocent, but real. And that is where healing truly begins. Now I ask you, would the world be better off without war? Until next time.